Hello everyone, I'm Lazy Grouse, and now that the Slaanesh DLC have been officially confirmed, and we even got some news about it, I know I'm a bit late, but I wanted to talk about the potential units we'll get and do some speculation. And first of all, the Kala is already confirmed, so there's no point in speculating on that, but the most important thing to know about her, if you are unfamiliar, is that she used to be an elven princess, and now she's a big snake lady with many arms, more than you'd expect. But they haven't revealed any legendary heroes, and I think they're gonna get the legendary hero, the Masque of Slaanesh. And she used to be Slaanesh's favorite demonette until they cursed her to dance for all eternity because she failed to cheer Slaanesh up when they were feeling bummed. Gods, am I right? But I think she would be really fast and really deadly as she's a very powerful demonette, but that's just standard Slaanesh stuff and not what I think should be interesting about her. But what I think would be pretty cool is if she had a bunch of different dances that would cause different buffs and debuffs or even support for other units. She would of course only be able to dance one dance at a time, but make one that just buffs her for duels with say attack and damage and maybe speed and maybe defensive stance if she gets in trouble. But she could also have a dance that increases speed and charge bonus or something for units around her, maybe a dance that replenishes vigor for other units, and I think a dance that could maybe rampage enemy units or lower leadership. And that's just some of the dances that I thought up after like a minute of thinking. I think there's lots of interesting design space that could make her really unique and interesting with a dance mechanic. And with these dances, I think she could be pretty average at fighting without any of her combat dances, so that she can switch between being a combatant and a support unit. They will also get a generic hero with the Champion of Slaanesh, but it will probably just be a generic fighter hero, so not much to say about that, so let's go and talk about what I want to talk about the most, their DLC units. So first of all, Pleasure Seekers have been confirmed as well, and they couldn't really skip these. It's pretty much the only unit that was guaranteed, since they are pretty much the only pure Slaanesh unit missing from Slaanesh when it comes to Warhammer Fantasy battles, I think at least. I'm not an expert on that, but from what I can find at the very least. And they will probably be some kind of shock cav, like most Slaanesh cav, but I kinda hope that they're a bit chunkier cav, since they got so much squishy shock cav already with the other Seekers, so maybe they're a bit slower than the other Seekers, but with a bigger health pool and maybe some extra physical resistance, so that they play differently from the other cav, because fast shock cav is not something Slaanesh needs more of. I'd rather have some cav that plays at least a little bit different, and not just a stronger version of what they already have. But the Kala and the Pleasure Seekers are the only confirmed units, at least from what I've heard. But I think we are pretty guaranteed to get Slaangors as well. Every other Chaos Gods got their own Beastman unit, in Siege they got 2 even, so I think it's pretty safe to say that Slaanesh will get theirs as well. And since we already have Axe and Shield from Slaangors, Great Weapons from Pestigors, and Halberds from Khorngors, I think they will either be dual wielders, which would fit Slaanesh, but it would be kinda boring because they already have very offensive, squishy, damage-dealing infantry, or they can get javelins that work as hybrid infantry, which I like much better. So at range, they do anti-large, decent damage, medium range javelins, as you would expect with javelin units. And in melee combat, they would have okay anti-large attacks, but pretty bad or at least not very good damage against everything else, but with a decent melee defense. So that way they can hold the line pretty decently if they need to, but they aren't heavy damage dealers if they get into combat. But I think they should still be pretty fast, since they are a Slaanesh unit and a Beastman unit, both of which are known to be pretty fast. So that way they can maneuver pretty well to get a good angle and flank with their javelins, but also be pretty good at intercepting cav or other large things that try to flank around your army, and that they would be pretty good to fight against. But if they get into an infantry fight, they wouldn't be very good, besides just holding the line until something deadlier comes by to deal with it. And another infantry unit I would like is, instead of getting some kind of generic Marauders or Chaos Warrior kind of unit, they get marked elves, like the Devoted of Slaanesh. Especially since it is a Dekala DLC, so I feel like it's only right to bring in some elf units. Because so far, Slaanesh only have the standard human chaos units and the demons, so it's about time we bring in some elves for Slaanesh. And the Devoted of Slaanesh may be a little bit too similar to the demonettes except mortal, so I'm thinking maybe give them a lower unit count like they did with the Wrathmongers and make them an offensive powerhouse, because they're supposed to deal crazy damage, but they are pretty much completely unarmored. Which means they would be pretty squishy but very deadly. So they would probably be best used with some support like Marauders or Chaos Warriors for protection while they dealt most of the damage, and if they would be caught out by themselves they would likely be in really big trouble. So, since this DLC has a bit of a snake theme already, and so far they like to add one big monster at least for each faction, I want the Dreadma, because it is a Chaos Beast and they can probably slap a Slaanesh mark on it. It is usually just a Chaos Undivided beast, but I'm pretty sure so is the Slaughter Brute and the Vortex Beast, and that didn't stop CA from giving them away to specific gods. Plus, I bet Slaanesh likes it at least, because they probably use it for pleasure somehow. And yes, I know, gross. But this is a Slaanesh DLC. This is not the time to be prudish or judgmental about who uses giant subterranean chaos worms as sex toys. But, putting aside the mandatory Slaanesh smut for a moment, it would likely be a pretty fast hard-hitting monster, probably with a breath attack. That way it can do the typical Slaanesh tactic of outmaneuvering the enemy and use their speed to line up breath attacks and rear charges. And maybe even give it some kind of burrow ability that would work like a medium-range teleport, but with a bit of a delay on the teleport since it actually has to burrow over to the target. I think that would be really cool. And I know it's possible because modders have added such abilities before, so CA can't come and say that it's not possible with the infrastructure, because I think they've said something similar before. And if something like that gets implemented, I think the delay on the teleport is really important, because that gives some kind of counterplay to it, because you can move your units away, at least if there's some kind of indicator where it's supposed to pop up. Otherwise, I think that might be a little bit broken to just pop out wherever. And finally, I think they might get the Basilisk, which is yet another undivided Chaos Beast, but this may be the last Demons DLC, and I feel like the Basilisk deserves to be in the game because I just think it's really cool. And I actually think it kind of fits with Slaanesh's roster, because Slaanesh is no stranger when it comes to poison. They aren't exactly Nurgle, but a big portion of their roster has poison attacks. And the Basilisk's whole deal is that it is really, really poisonous. So I think it should either have a unique, really potent poison that does damage over time, debuff stats, and even Sunder armor all in one debuff, because the Basilisk poison even corrodes metal. Or it could just be debuff stacking with poison attack, some aura of armor Sunder, and maybe even a Mortis effect as well, because the Basilisk just exudes poison and kinda kills everything that gets too close. But I really like the idea of having it in the Slaanesh roster, because it would kind of imply that the Slaanesh units use the Basilisk to poison their weapons as well, and I just kinda like how that ties them all together a little bit. And that's what I think will be in the DLC, or at the very least hope for. So what do you think of these units? Did I miss anything obvious that you want in the DLC? Tell me in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, bye bye!